Good morning, folks, and welcome to FYI. Welcome to FYI. For your information, it is, believe it or not, the 14th day of November already. What are you guys having for breakfast this morning? It's Tuesday, the 14th. Yesterday was the wall. It was a holiday. We didn't have an evening program, even though we had a morning program because we felt there was just too much to wait until Tuesday back to the regular working day to bring you guys all the valid and credible information. We felt, good folks, it was just too much, and we're privileged to be here with you another day. Very, very, very privileged to be here with each and every one of you. How are you folks doing out there this morning? What's happening at your end? We're just trying to ensure that we are patched through to all the valid and credible places so that other folks get valid, credible information as well. And one of the reasons why we're on late, we were watching, that International Court of Justice hearing on Guyana, and this whole issue of this referendum that Venezuela wants to bring Lynn Finance, Stephanie Pearson. We were keeping an eye on that so that we have even more valid, credible information to share with you guys, and we're going to share some of that with you this morning. And folks, we encourage you to, as we say all the time, share the live and smash that emoji button so that others have valid, credible information as well. Welcome to each and every one of you on the various pages, Ozzy Adams and the other folks who are joining us on the various pages that you wonderful folks are coming in from. I can see all of you streaming onto the broadcast. Good to have each and every one. Yeah, there we are. Alice there for a quick minute. There we are. Faye Nicholson, we see you there. And Joy Hopkinson, we see you as well. And Odessa Grant, we see you too. Veronica, beautiful. Good to have you there, Veronica. Edward is here with us as well. Dolly Anderson, good to have you, Dolly. And Debbie Collins. All the usual suspects, including but not limited to Isabella Butters. Isabella, how are you doing? How is this new week treating you folks? We know some of you went to work, went to school, because it wasn't a holiday where you folks are. It was a holiday here in Guyana, and we caught up on some rest, did some research too, did some research as well. Yesterday, I got a meeting with that team that is coming on that fact-finding mission. Got a meeting with them on Thursday. So in preparation for that, had to be doing some groundwork, and so I was so happy to have a little time off last evening to focus on that, and also to start preparing for this new week, folks, this 4-day week. We didn't get too much rest yesterday. We were happy just for the time to flip a page or two. And also, we had our eyes on, as I said, that hearing this morning of the International Court of Justice, the ICJ, on this Venezuela referendum, folks. And there is where we begin this broadcast this morning from. How are you folks doing out there? We trust that you guys are well. I got some black coffee at this end. Rohan Basantram, I'm very hungry this morning. The pangs and fangs of hunger sinking in. But a good morning to each and every one of you. Wherever you wonderful, beautiful folks joining us from, Kyle Bino, Isabella Butters, Dolly Anderson, and it is there we pick up our broadcast this morning, folks. It is there we pick up our broadcast and all of the happenings at the ICJ, and we're going to bring some of that to you now, and we're going to bring some of that to you also in a subsequent broadcast. But very interesting this morning, Claire Jamat and the other folks joining us, Dorrit David. Dorrit, how are you doing there? Good to have you, Dorrit. Melanie Adams, good to have Melanie and Lennox on the live. Magnell Barrow as well. Good to see each and every one of you. We were just so privileged. We're so privileged, rather, to have all of you join us in the morning. It's one of our favorite times to start the day with you wonderful, peace-loving folks. I only Virego here. The Rabble Rouser is only me. Orin Baker, Leslyn Charles is here with us too. Good to have all of you folks on the live this morning. Good to have each and every one of you on the live. And as I said, we started out, a part of why we came on late this morning, because we saw we were witnessing, looking at the hearing of the International Court of Justice on that Venezuela referendum in which they want to annex the Essequibo. That's what they want to do. Ronaldo Casillas, that is the aim, the objective of it. Jolly Anderson, we see you there. Kyle Bino, we see you there as well. And, we were happy to see the good folks representing us. And it was Carl Greenwich, I believe, who I think put in a very summary manner, why we currently before the ICJ. This is not the totality of the case, but this sitting this morning, this hearing this morning, why were we there before the International Court of Justice? And I thought, the fog of all the information that we might face, that we could try to summarize, what was this hearing about this morning? What are we asking the court for? So Venezuela got this referendum on December 3rd. Yep, they got this referendum on December 3rd. And we were before the International Court of Justice, as we said, this morning, right? This has to do with requests for the indication of provisional measures. The request for provisional the request rather for provisional measures. And here is what we're before the court today. All right, here's what we're asking for, and this is former Minister of Finance, former Minister of Foreign Affairs, and now advisor to the government on this Venezuelan issue, among other issues, Carl Greenwich, the Honorable Carl Greenwich, before the International Court of Justice earlier this morning.
As always, Guyana places its complete confidence and trust in the court, convinced that the court will deliberate earnestly and respond fairly and justly to the request that Guyana. I will now read Guyana's submissions. For the foregoing reasons, Guyana submits that the court should indicate the following provisional measures which would remain in effect until the issuance of the court's judgment on merits. 1. Venezuela shall not proceed with a consultative referendum planned for 3rd December 2023 in its present form. 2. In particular, Venezuela shall not include the first, third, or fifth questions in the consultative referendum. 3. Nor shall Venezuela include within the consultative referendum planned or any other public referendum any question encroaching upon the legal issues to be determined by the court in its judgment on the merits, including, but not limited to, A, the legal validity and binding effect of the 1899 award, the sovereignty over the territory between the Essequibo River and the boundary established by the 1899 award and the 1950 agreement, and the purported creation of the state of Guyana Essequibo and any associated measures, including granting of Venezuelan citizenship and national identity cards. 4. Venezuela shall not take any actions that are intended to prepare or allow the exercise of sovereignty or de facto control over any territory that was awarded to British Guyana in the 1899 Arbitral Award. Venezuela shall retain, that's 5, Venezuela shall refrain from any action which might aggravate or extend the dispute before the court or make it more difficult to resolve. As always...
There you have it, folks. There you have it. That is Carl Greenwich, the Honorable Carl Greenwich, before the International Court of Justice. That's just earlier this morning. And that is one of the reasons why we are on late. Folks, I don't care which part of the political divide you are, today especially. You need to share this broadcast so that other folks can get valid, credible information, and that together we can understand these issues. Raquel Gentle, David Ford, Oren Barker, so that other folks can understand this issue. These are the reasons why there was the sitting of the ICJ this morning. There was this hearing before the ICJ, and those are the reasons why our case is being put forward. Because this referendum on December 3rd got a lot of implications, folks. It has a lot of implications. And it was one of the things, before I go to the second area I want to discuss with you guys this morning, I was very happy to hear Carl Greenidge open the way he did just now. He said, as always, Guyana places its complete confidence and trust in the court, convinced that the court will deliberate in earnest and respond fairly and justly to the requests of Guyana. It is Venezuela in this situation, good folks, who are the aggressors, not Guyana. And that has always been Guyana's position, irrespective of which side of the political divide we find ourselves and which party is in government, that our confidence is in the judicial system, whether it was the good officers process or now before the ICJ. It is Venezuela that wants to take this matter out of the ICJ and place it someplace else. It is not us. But I think it was one of the other persons also representing Guyana who put very succinctly, right, what Guyana is asking for here. Very, very succinctly. Folks, these matters, are very, very nuanced issue. And this is Professor Alan Paulette, also representing Guyana, Professor Alan Paulette. And he explicates a little more too on what Guyana is asking the ICJ for at this morning sitting. Take a look, folks. Take a listen. Professor Alan Paulette. Take a listen, folks.
Madam President, firstly, Guyana requests the court to state with legally binding effect, in accordance with your jurisprudence, that, and I'm quoting in English,
shall not proceed with the consultative referendum planned for 3 December 2023 in its present form. Il s'agit d'une...
This is a request that is both very general and moderate, and is elucidated by what follows. You are not being asked, members of the court, to give an overall ruling on this initiative by Venezuela, however questionable it may be, or even to suspend the implementation of the resolution of 20th October 2023 as a whole. You're simply being asked to prevent it from producing irreparable effects, and that are irremediably contrary to the fundamental tenets of international law and to the maintenance of international peace and security. This would be the inevitable consequences of the referendum if it were to be held on the 3rd of December or later, as the questions are currently worded. Incidentally, Guyana's restraint does not mean that the resolution in question is acceptable in itself and independently of its current content. It is not acceptable in principle, since it is clearly intended to thwart the judgment that you will give on the merits and to make its application impossible. This is utter disregard for justice, similar to contempt of court, and should certainly be punished, especially as it comes in addition to several previous instances that do not demonstrate, the least that could be said, a firm Venezuelan commitment to orderly proceedings. I won't dwell on this point, as we need to deal with the most pressing issues. Madam President.
Yep. Right there, folks, is Professor Alan Paulette, representing Guyana, and telling the ICJ, the National Court of Justice, that should Venezuela go forward, right? We ain't got nothing against them going forward with the referendum. But there got certain parts of it we got some contentions with. Not the totality necessarily, on the face of it, prima facie. Certain parts of it we got some issues with that could lead to irreparable consequences, he says. He says there's a disregard for justice here. You see, they're flying in the face of the court. The court is determining this matter. And here is Venezuela wanting to press forward valid, credible information. This is why we were on late, because we were holding for the hearing to wrap up. And then we got to now curate these pieces to bring you valid, credible information. If you share the live, yet you're wicked. As Kyle says just now, Kyle Baino, you're exhibiting jagabatical behavior. Vice Chair of Region 7, Kamal Prasad, I see you're addressing me formally this morning. Kamal, a very good morning. So that was Professor Alan Powlett speaking there about the irrevocable harm that could be brought if this referendum goes forward in its entirety. Rastaman, Naomi Drucker, you see, I happen to do the little LLB and so on. So I got a little more insight to come and share some of these information. And Orrin Dunn Cook put it best, not a blade of grass. Orrin says, not a blade, none whatsoever. But I love some of what Professor Alan Powlett did this morning, because he not only talked in broad terms, but he went down in the weeds, Maxine Monroe, on some of these issues. He went in the weeds this morning. He said, yes, they have a right to have their referendum, but some parts of it, we got some issues with. Some parts of it, like this question 4, for instance. This question 4 in the referendum for December 3rd is very problematic. Ras Ricardo, Yolanda Thomas, don't take my word for it. Listen to what Professor Alan Powlett said at the hearing before the ICJ this morning on this referendum that Venezuela wants to hold on December 3rd. Take a listen.
Fourth question envisaged by the resolution does not raise any objections if, at least, it is interpreted in accordance with the natural meaning of the words. There is no reason, Madam President, to prevent Venezuela from asserting its rights with regard to maritime delimitation, although, by all means, may give cause for concern, and the numerous communiques and tweets from Venezuelan political and military leaders, including those from the Ministry of Defense, strongly suggest the risk of armed intervention. That said, if Venezuela sticks to the letter of its stated intentions, the rest should be reassuring. The fourth question.
Folks, you heard that? That is Professor Alan Powlett on behalf of Guyana, making the arguments, as Kemraj Ramjatan would say. He said this fourth question, by all means, may give cause for concern. The numerous communiques and tweets from the Venezuelan political and military leaders, including from the Ministry of Defense, strongly suggest, listen to this, the risk of armed intervention. Venezuela said they want peace. We are the rabble rousers. And yet Professor Alan Powlett says, when taken together, these communiques and tweets from Venezuelan political and military leaders, including the Ministry of Defense, strongly suggest the risk of armed intervention. All of this while this matters before the ICJ. That is why you heard him previously say that they're flying in the face of the court. They have a total disregard for justice. And if allowed to go forward in its current form, would make any future ruling of the court void and of no effect. That is what Professor Alan Powlett told the International Court of Justice a short while ago, this morning, on this very matter. And as I said, I love the fact that Professor went down in the weeds on this issue. And these aren't exciting matters you swing on the chandelier from. But as it concerns our territorial integrity and sovereignty, all are involved. As our late great poet Martin Carter said, and all are consumed. And that is why we invite you guys to share the light, because what Professor Poulet says next is extremely important. You heard him talking there about the fourth question in this proposed referendum in Venezuela for December 3rd. He goes on to talk a little bit more about the implications of this fourth question and the fifth. He says the fourth question, as you heard there, run the risk of armed intervention. But hear what he says about the fourth and the fifth question further, as he elucidates on this matter of this referendum proposed for December 3rd. Hear what he says, folks. We come here for slight nobody, slander, libel, you know. Valid, credible information. And by the way, we are celebrating 3 years on air. So if you all want to continue to receive valid, credible information, we ask you folks to partner with us as well. 3 years out here, folks. 3 years. We were so busy just trying to get information to continue to bring you guys valid, credible information. We didn't get the cake yet. But here again, folks, that aside, the fourth and the fifth questions got grave implications. Armed intervention, Professor Poulet already stated. But hear what he says next about this fourth and fifth question. Hear what he says next. Take a look, take a listen, and share the live as well.
Any symmetry with the fourth question to which I just referred would be misleading. It is true. Here too, Venezuela claims to be acting in accordance with the law, always graced with a capital letter. But there is an internal contradiction, and that is far more worrying here in the first question. Here, the Venezuelan government is claiming that the 1899 sentence is fraudulent, and that the so-called Guyana Essequiba belongs to Venezuela. This is precisely what is at stake in the request that Guyana submitted to you on 29th March 2018, in which it is specifically asking you, firstly, to confirm that the 1899 Arbitral Award is valid, and secondly, that Guyana enjoys full sovereignty over the territory that Venezuela refers to as Guyana Essequiba. Moreover, all ambiguity is removed by the third question that the Venezuelan government intends to ask.
Agreement with Venezuela's historic position of not recognizing the jurisdiction of the International Court of Justice to resolve the Guyana Essequiba territorial controversy. C'est clair. Il s'agit.
It is clear. It's a question of reaffirming Venezuela's refusal to recognize your jurisdiction, even though you firmly reaffirmed it on 2 occasions. In your 2020 judgment, you concluded that the court has jurisdiction to entertain Guyana's claims concerning the validity of the 1899 award on the border between British Guyana and between the territories of the parties. End of quote. Then again, in your 2023 report, you considered that there was no obstacle, I'm quoting, exerting its jurisdiction, which is based on the application of the Geneva Agreement. End of quote. Now, the fifth question reads as follows. I don't think it's necessary to read it. It's displayed on the screen, and Mr. Reichler just gave a reading. As demonstrated, the aim is quite simply to obtain approval for a thinly disguised annexation, which, of course, also prejudges the outcome of the proceedings brought by Guyana. The new state of Guyana Essequiba that is to be created as a Venezuelan province corresponds very exactly to the territory recognized as Guyanese in the 1899 ruling, which the court is called upon to confirm by Guyana's application. Here again, the aim is to create a fait accompli before you, members of the court. You've had a chance to rule on Guyana's request in the obvious hope of preventing it.
These three questions turned the proceedings before the court into a mockery that would deprive the forthcoming judgment and the authority of the court's decisions of any practical effect. This is why, in its second request, Guyana is asking the court to indicate that, and I shall quote,
Venezuela shall not include the first, third, and fifth questions in the consultative referendum, should it take place.
Any symmetry.
Yeah. There you have it, folks. Professor Alan Poulet before the ICJ on behalf of Guyana. And he says what these folks are seeking to do here is a thinly disguised annexation. In a submission before, you heard him talk about the armed intervention. He said this fourth question and the fifth question is a thinly disguised annexation. This is not just keeping things intact as they are, and we're just saying Venezuela is ours. It's not just bluster. It's a thinly disguised annexation. He says these questions, when they're taken together, turn the proceedings before the Honorable Court, the ICJ, into a mockery and would deprive the forthcoming judgment and the authority of the court, any decision of the court, would deprive it of any practical effect. Which means when they don't occupy Essequibo, if the court says Essequibo is not the only, they think they're rolling back over the border, it would deprive the court's decision of any practical effect. If they go ahead with this referendum on December 3rd. That is what the International Court of Justice heard this morning on this matter of this December 3rd referendum. If you share the life, yet you're wicked, especially when it's our anniversary. We just want other folks to get valid, credible information. And we're going to continue to sift through some of what we heard before the ICJ this morning and bring it to you guys in our next broadcast. The Venezuelans, they're going to make their submissions before the International Court tomorrow morning. They're going to make those submissions. I'm eager to hear what lies and propaganda they're coming with. Or if you see the list of folks representing them, 3 pages long. It's always amazing the amount of people who ready support a lie and propaganda. But we're looking forward to hear what they have to say. Ingrid King. Ingrid, I wish I could have quote verbatim what you said there about those who want to give a channel out to some place. I wish I could have quote verbatim what you've said there. I wish. But folks, this is somewhat we're following this morning. Good to have all of you on the live. Sandra Holder is here. Rhonda Gordon is here with us. Michelle Garrett is here too. Waveney Doris. All the other folks who are joining us this morning, we're just very privileged to have each and every one of you here with us. One of our monitors doing his own story this morning. But again, grateful to have all of you on the live. Pace and power. Good folks. Pace and power. Sharon Mercurius, we see you there as well. Fennel Innes, we see you there too. Let's touch on some of the other things we're following this morning, folks. In addition to this, a hearing before the ICJ This hearing, very, very important hearing before the ICJ this morning on relief Guyana is seeking. This whole issue of this referendum for December 3rd. The Venezuelans are going to be heard tomorrow morning. We're going to bring more of that to you tomorrow when we hear from them. And later on in the day, we're going to bring some more in this very hearing today to you guys. Some of the other issues we're following. Today's editorial in Sabbath News, very interesting. Very interesting. David Wood wants to know if VP Jagdeo is on the list to speak for the Venezuelans tomorrow. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows if VP Jagdeo is on the list for tomorrow? Who knows? But this editorial, they got their hands full clearly in Sabbath News today. You see the header there? Let me come to the side to see a bit more. You see that header there in Sabbath News? School violence. We're on the precipice of a slippery slope. And part of what Sabbath News says in this editorial this morning, if the blame for persistent, or rather, if blame for the persistence of the problem, this violence in school, cannot be placed on any single door, whether or not the state, primarily through the education system, is doing sufficient to remove or at least significantly reduce the blight of violence from our school system, is manifestly questionable. Whether they're doing all that they can to remove the scourge of violence from our school is manifestly questionable. Now, it takes a very long time for some of the folks to see what is happening, where we are. But we spotted early the trends. And we've shown you from Camberville Secondary School to secondary schools on the East Bank how this issue of violence in our schools is picking up pace. It's picking up a lot of steam. And one of the things Sabbath News articulates in this editorial this morning is that these used to be some little squabbles, right? In its own words, in the editorial it says, in-school violence has now graduated from rambunctious schoolyard fracas that delivered mere raucousness than serious injury, and which used to be immediately dispersed on the intervention of a teacher. Well, they put it more eloquently than we could. It moved from just bluster to now grave bodily harm and grievous bodily injury. Grievous bodily harm. And one of the latest examples, as you will see in this editorial, which I've given you all for homework, is the Golden Grove Secondary School student Jamal Reed. As the editorial points out, a victim of last Thursday's gruesome schoolyard attack with a cricket bat. With a cricket bat. His mother says he's fighting for his life, with head injuries. And these instances of grievous bodily harm are just coming more and more commonplace, consistent, prolific. Fantastic editorial out of Sabbath News. In one section of the editorial, it says, the in-school altercation these days are often outgrowths of patterns of violence learned in the homes and communities where the combatants are born, grow up, and learn to mimic the lifestyle of road heroes who frequently include close relatives and friends. Right? Yeah. Part of the editorial this morning in Sabbath News. And I dare say, in this instance, it's not just up to the Ministry of Education. the society, the community, the churches, the religious organization have their role to play. Parents got the biggest role to play in all of this. School violence. We're on the precipice of a slippery slope, says Tabak News. And then we got another kind of violence that we're dealing with too. Folks, brace yourselves over. I told you all repeatedly, in many instances, we are far ahead of mainstream media in the patterns we're seeing, because we're in the weeds on these issues. We ain't smoking weed. We're in the weeds on these issues every single day. And that's why we began seeing a pattern of school violence a long time ago and start pointing it out. Tell me if I'm wrong. This is our 3rd anniversary, and we've been talking about the plagues and the scourges that we have. The 7 plagues which seem to have become exacerbated under this current administration and regime. Violence against women and girls, carnage on our roads and waterways. NASA, we've said it time and time again. Slow down on the roadways so we arrive alive. The fires in this country, unbelievable the amount of fires we have. Things that combust, things that burn. Inexplicable. And all of the evidence we have concerning, for instance, the carnage on our road and waterways have led us to conclude Guyana has the most dangerous roadways in the world. The most dangerous. Palm halls. We're not happy to be ahead on these issues, but I'm just showing you, we don't come here to gaff. In my earphone voice. You want gaff, you can go into other programs. Valid, credible information. Now, in that first issue, this is just in the last couple of days. Violence against women and girls. Just in the last couple of days. Look at what we're following. In this morning's papers, this headline dominates. Ashmin Mahadio succumbed. Folks, as I'm telling you this story, my skin growing. You know how we say it colloquially? If the American ambassador, Nicole Chirat, is watching us, she got to ask for some interpretation. My skin growing. How do you interpret that for somebody who is not au fait with our cultural idiosyncrasies or dialect and so on? My skin growing, my pores raise up. My pores raise up. Ashmin Mahadio was shot by a man who didn't want to let her go. At her home. You see. And just thinking about what I'm about to say next, my pores raise up even more. Report says that Ashmin Mahadio was shot behind her neck. At the back. She was shot behind her neck. The report says the bullet exited through her jaw. Glenford Gordon, Cheryl Pancham, and she was paralyzed, fighting for her life. She was at Georgetown Public Hospital for some time, and then they recently transferred her to the New Amsterdam Hospital. And we're now learning that she succumbed overnight. He shot her in her neck at the back. The bullet exited her jaw, paralyzing her instantly. Violence against our women and girls. And there is no frontal leadership on this. There's a special time of year. International Women's Day and so on. Oh, you can get all the fancy words and people holding up plaques. We against violence against, we are for women and so on. But the rest of the year, absolutely no movement. Absolutely no movement. And here is where initiatives like Spotlight can do so much more. Meetings upon meetings upon meetings. Millions of dollars being spent to wine and dine and to lunch people. But where it matters most, why are we losing our women and girls in this magnitude and this degree? In no other country on earth per capita would you see violence meted out to women and girls on this scale, with this magnitude. Who would want this Bel Air woman dead? A car was found at Swan on the East Bank, on the Linden-Suzac Highway, burnt, and remains inside. They want to believe it's this woman from Bel Air whose remains were discovered there. Right? Violence against women and girls. What could she have done to somebody to deserve these horrors? That's my simple question. What could she have done to somebody that somebody would unleash this kind of violence on her? These are the questions being asked. Right? These are the questions being asked. Again, this matter is under current investigation. This young lady was reported missing sometime. And then this car that was registered to her, this is Nirvana. Is it Algu? Nirvana Algu of Bel Air. The car they said was registered to her, and now DNA samples have been taken and are off for testing. Who would want to do this to Nirvana Algu of Bel Air? Beautiful woman. Her car was last seen on the Linden-Suzac Highway junction. That's where she was last seen alive. And then the charred remains of the vehicle found at Swan on the Linden-Suzac Highway. She was reported missing before. They identified the car as hers, and now DNA samples are off for testing. Who would want to inflict that kind of horrors on Nirvana Algu? Right? And then there is death at the Sunset Hotel. Sometime between Saturday night and Sunday morning, this young lady was found stabbed to death. Well, we know now a little more than we knew then that she was in an extremely abusive relationship with her husband. They said they hail from Berbice. Part of the reporting, it says that Ramona Lal suffered a horrific beating at the hands of her husband last week. A horrific beating. She called a relative for help. The relative intervened and sent her to Essequibo and her mother for some reprieve. The husband went to the mother's place, was stopped from entering the yard, and told them that he children and he wife here, so they can't stop me from coming in. And apparently the wife left with him en route to Berbice, stopping in at the Sunset Hotel for the night. Well, the receptionist said the male occupant of the room left, I think since either Sunday morning early or late Saturday night. The male occupant. And when it was checkout time on Sunday, she knocked, didn't get an answer from the female occupant of the room, and so she used a spare key of the hotel. And when she entered the room, she saw the ghastly sight. Ramona Lal's body naked on the floor and blood everywhere on the walls and so on. Stabbed multiple times. And there is almost no leadership nationally on any consistent basis with this violence against our women and our girls. None. Our thoughts and prayers, of course. And with all these victims, their families, their friends, their loved ones, their communities. This is just 1 week, 1 weekend, you know. We got a serious problem here. Violence in our schools, violence against our women and girls, in our homes. You see what's happening on our roadways. Some of the issues we're dealing with this morning. A man was taken into custody, said to believe to be involved in some kind of a sexual assault on a minor, found hanging in the lockups. Right? Saw somebody in the comment section, and one of the posts on social media said he spared me a lot of expense, a lot of time. He was implicated in the sexual assault of a minor, was taken into custody by police, and then they now find him hanging in the lockups. 58-year-old Lloyd David. He was arrested and placed in the lockups at the Providence police station, where he was found hanging. Yep, that's some of the things making the news this morning. Babita Kisun, just some of the things making the news. Something in this country wants blood. Wants blood. Right? Wants blood. This fire in Alexander Village, over the weekend, the woman that owns the building, one Miss Jack Dio, I think the report said that was the only name given, Miss Jack Dio, she said this building was used as a barn to store stuff that she would buy and sell wholesale. Miss Jack Dio says that this building had no electricity to it. So a fire couldn't start like that, and was used as a storage barn. There is nobody stationed there, like living in the quarters or so, and no power to the building. So it is wrong to believe that this fire started perhaps with squibs or fireworks, as this occurred. I believe it was Saturday night. This fire in Alexander Village. No power to the building, as a barn for all intents and purposes. Went up in flames. Just like that. Went up in flames. Yeah. 104 and not out. Folks, that's a fantastic age. Can you imagine the things one eyes would have seen in 104 years? Can you imagine that? 104. That's a long time. One resident of Haslington, Ruby Mingo. Ruby turned 104 on November 8th. Right? She's a part of the elite, the very, very elite Sanitarians Club. Right? You don't get it easy, you know. The way things going on the road, the violence against women and girls. 104. Fantastic. So we want to say congrats to Ruby Mingo. Now, well over. So that you find in that Centurions Club. 104 and not out. Some of the other things we're tracking this morning. Before we let you guys go, some of the other things we're focus on. A GPL linesman suffered shot in the execution of his work. We are at thoughts and prayers with him. All right. I don't think that ended up as a fatality, thanks be to God. But our thoughts and our prayers are with him. I think there's some video also in circulation We're not going to show that here, folks. Some video in circulation as well that shows the when this young man was shot. Right? As it happened in real time at Breeding Hope recently. Thoughts and prayers with him. Our thoughts and prayers with him. He's being hospitalized at the moment after suffering electrical shock. Our thoughts and prayers with him for speedy recovery. Guy Expo is back. They said tickets are available. I think it's from the 16th. For a couple of days. Guy Expo is back. That's what they say. It's back. Good luck with that. King Charles turns 75 today, apparently. Yeah, a long way from 104. Live a good 30 more years, you're there. Nepal says it's going to ban TikTok, right? Citing the effect on social harmony. Nepal banning TikTok. Good luck with that. Good luck with that, Nepal. Good luck with that. The king turns 75. Ruby, 104. He got a little way to go. You know, thoughts and prayers with all of those persons. Some of you, you know, in some tight squeeze. Social issues, you know, issues at home, physical issues, health issues. Our thoughts and our prayers with all of you good folks. So what we're following today, folks. Guy Expo, folks. The Guy Expo. We got a full week at our end. We're going to try to capture some of the goings on at Guy Expo. We got a meeting also with the fact-finding team. You know them boys said they ain't got time with fact-finding team. That's what they said. They ain't got no time with no fact-finding team. I can only tell you all what I know. People say they ain't care with no fact-finding team. They don't want to meet with no team. Even though the folks said that they agreed. Even though the folks said they agreed to meet with them. You know. Some members of the team spoke with Mark Benchcup, I think, was Saturday or Sunday. You know, before we go, here is some of what they told Mark Benchcup.
I'm very excited about this trip because the people of Guyana have spoken, and we're just coming to have a conversation with all the parties involved, every stakeholder, to make sure that we come up with a fact-finding mission that is unbiased and will benefit all of Guyana so they can achieve the goal of becoming, indeed, one Guyana. I'm very disheartened by that statement that was made by the president because, one, we have no relationship with Rickford Burke. We are independent, we are unbiased, and we are autonomous. And this is not the first time that this has happened. We are coming just to be a sounding board for the citizens of Guyana, in particular, those who are Guyanese Americans or those who just have something that they want to say to the larger population, whether in America or
Through the floor, main lane, group 5 is now welcome aboard group 5.
We are in the airport, so please forgive us for the sound. But we want to be very clear that we have no relationship with Rickford Burke. I have never met Rickford Burke. None of the delegation has ever met or spoken to Rickford Burke. None of that delegation. None of the delegation has ever done so. And so for the president or the PPP to make such an allegation to say that we are tied to the PPP is fallacious, and it is very it impugns our integrity because these are individuals who are elected officials or activists in their own right. And so for them to come out and say that we, for some reason, have been tied to a situation that is trying to be with, I think it's, what is the name of that, his group, CDIG? I don't even know the name of the group, but whatever it is, that is unfalse. And it has no merit, and it is very disheartening because I myself,
Hey, it's not this members in group 6, now welcome aboard. This is flight 1245, non-stop service to Miami. Board group 1 through 6 at this time.
Okay, we get ready to board now, but
That's okay.
I reached out to the president myself prior to the first press release being released out of courtesy because I do respect the sovereignness of the nation and himself, to say that a press release will be coming out the next day, to say that we were coming to Guyana. And he indeed responded back. He did say that he did not, that all of the things that were being said were lies, however, that he was looking forward to our visit. So then to see all of this propaganda or all this information that's going out on the email now is very disheartening because I thought that we all had a working relationship. I'm believing that we'll be able to speak to all the Guyanese citizens, and they'll be able to tell their stories. Because sometimes, being a former, politician myself, sometimes politicians may slant stories, but it's good to go to the base of, of the conversations, to go on the ground to the people themselves and let them express their sentiments. And that's what we're going to do. We are totally unbiased. We have no personal stakes in this game. We just want to see the best for all the citizens of Guyana. Regardless of their ethnicity, and we thought that we were doing indeed the right thing. But to come out and say that we are some kind of way tied to Rick Burke is a stretch, and we are very disheartened by it.
Sir, my name is Marcus Coleman. All I was going to say is I was a part of the last delegation, and when we met with the president and his administration, this same individual's name came up as far as being associated with us. At that particular meeting, we had to make it very.
Group 7 passengers now welcome aboard Group 7. This is flight 1245 with service to Miami for Group 127 at this time.
We had to make it very stern that we have no relationship, and that's, Mr. Dawkins already just stated. That is the position this time, but it is troubling for myself, who is one of the ones returning, that here it is again, that me being a part of this coalition is now even being tainted before it gets started. And it happens to deal with the same individual whose name we made it quite clear 2 years ago. So I'm looking forward to getting there so we can clear all this mess up.
Absolutely. But thank you so much for that, though. But quickly, were you surprised when Mr. Irfan Ali actually found a reason not to meet with you guys and even put everything, a cover over everything to say that there's no discrimination, there's nothing, even without giving you guys a chance to meet and hear what he has to say?
Yes, I was very surprised, but I am sure that because of the contentious relationship between Mr. Rick Burke and the PPP, that there are some, some type of situation that is going on that would make them feel uncomfortable. However, maybe he should have reached out to me directly because he has all of my contact information. I've been nothing but transparent with the president. Actually, I was holding him in high esteem, and for him to come out and just go and say that this, he's shunning our visit, and to say that we have some type of relationship with Rick Burke was very disheartening to me, especially when I gave him upfront notice every time before we put out a press release or before we decided to even come, and then for him to say he was looking forward to seeing us, and then for this statement to come out, it was very disheartening to me. I would like to say to all of the Guyanese people that
this is the general boarding call from flight 1245 with service to Miami. At this time, we're boarding all groups, all rows at this time. All ticketed confirmed passengers now welcome aboard.
That to all the Guyanese Americans all Guyanese who are willing to meet with us, who have reached out, we have had an overwhelming response to our visit. We look forward to speaking with you all, and don't worry, even if we don't get on this visit, we will come again because we do want to hear the petitions of the people, and just know that we are all in this thing together, no matter where we are in the diaspora. Many of us have been part of colonization or part of oppression across the world. It is very disheartening to see that any ethnicities who have been in minorities would ever be fighting against each other. We have to make sure that we send a strong message to any type of patriarchal society that would try to pit us against each other. So we need to be strong in what we're doing. I believe that one Guyanese can be achieved if we all work together.
Yeah. So that's where we are, good folks, this morning. Government says it will not be meeting with this team. A number of other persons are going to be joining them to compose that team. I know they're meeting with the Alliance for Change on Thursday. They're meeting also with the PNCR. They're meeting with also other groups to get a sense of what's been happening on the ground, some of what they're hearing about to test the veracity of that. But the Ali government seems to be running scared. That's all for us. From this end, folks, we're going to see you on the next one. Take good care and stay vigilant out there, folks. Happy anniversary to us. We're happy to be out here 3 years and continuing. You see those the links flitting by, folks. Contribute to our program. This is a fantastic time to do so. Ensure that we're here for another 3. We intend to be. But it's all up to you guys, of course. Thanks for joining us this morning. Valid, credible information all the time. That's our time, folks. And that's our program. Stay safe.